this video is going to show you a Solar Flawless Duality during the Season of the Witch with the Banner of War build that you saw just before there that I was using. For the starting section, for the traversal section, I recommend you put on a long range weapon just to shoot the bells from far away quicker. And literally there's nothing much to the traversal section. If you don't know how it works or where to go, then just follow the route on screen. I've sped up all the traversal sections in this dungeon just so that it's easier for me to edit the video on and stuff like that, so that's why that is. If you've never run it, then you shouldn't really be watching a video and you should experience it your first time yourself anyways. But the reason why I'm doing a Solar Flawless Duality so early in the season is because of the Banner of War build that we have, which is a new Strand aspect for Titans, which is insane right now on how it works. And it's a perfect build to run with Lament, and Lament is generally best in slot for Solar Flawless Duality because of how it works. So that's why I'm running this build to show it off. This is sort of the best example this week to show the build off. I could have run the build in many other activities, but it's actually really good, as I say, in this particular dungeon. I think it's the weekly dungeon this week, Duality, I think so at least. So that's also a reason. Like I said, I've sped up the traversal sections just for ease of use for editing and things. I am using Synthoceps, which I'm aware has had a nerf with glaives, obviously a while back now, but it's still worth it at times to use Synthoceps anyways on a build like this, because you're forgetting that you have a Roman super, right? So your Roman super is going to take massive benefit from you using Synthoceps. Now I know you're going to be watching the video and you're going to be like, why are you not wearing Strongholds? Why are you not wearing them right now? Well, I didn't really need to wear them, is the answer. I do end up wearing them though on the final boss, but not on this fight. Now the problem that we have right now, and I was going to not really upload this, but the reason why I wasn't going to upload it is because loadouts don't work. Now what you understand is loadouts is a powerful tool. It allows you to knock surges, weapon surges, on and off. We don't have this tool right now. I mean, there is a way around of me doing it and then doing the surges, and that just means manually swapping gear and all that stuff, which I couldn't be bothered with. But what you need to understand is, with loadouts, it makes it more accessible to solo 2 phase, both bosses, as opposed to solo 3 phase. I essentially didn't really use my surges because there was no easy way for me to sort of, like I say, knock. Well, there is. I just swapped my armor pieces, but this was literally my first run. I'm not going to rerun it back right now this week because there's no loadouts. I will run it back though when loadouts comes back in the game, where you can knock surges on and off. I will redo that. For those who are struggling with Duality Solar Flawless still, just wait. The best answer is just to wait, but I will say that with Banner of War, it's really good. This is one of the easiest clears I've ever known. And there's a couple of moments, because I'm rusty with Duality and I haven't run it in ages, there's a couple of moments in this full dungeon Solar Flawless clear where I should have wiped and I didn't. It just goes to show how good the build is. So I'll just literally explain a couple of phases of the fight, and then I'll let the video play on. Then I'll go to the Vault encounter, do a commentary on that a little bit, and then a little bit of commentary on the final boss. Not commentary right the way throughout, because I haven't got time for a 55-minute commentary video today. But I can add, as I say, here and there in terms of information. So I'm still using Shackle. Shackle's still really useful. Like being able to shackle these backpacks in Duality is really, really strong. Alright, so I still wouldn't recommend you run Threadlings. Not on a Titan and not in this. Maybe on a Warlock, sure, you're going to run Threadlings. But really, on a Titan, with this build, it's nice just to shackle those backpacks to stop any environmental damage hurting you, because they are a problem and you lose Solar Flawless because of it. We're also using a glaive, which glaive does work with Banner of War, and that's really what it is. You need to think of a glaive as a mini sword. Think of it as a mini sword. That way you're not spamming sword ammo, because you're going to say, well, swords proc Banner of War. Sure, yeah, they do, but that means you're wasting valuable heavy ammo. Why? Just glaive them. Glaive's infinite ammo when you use its melee ability, so just use the glaive. Here and there you'll whip out the sword, and you'll see me do that, but only on critical moments you will do such a thing. Not always. Like, why would I be starting to sword these little dogs and this Colossus when I can just shackle him and glaive him? It's ammo efficiency. They fixed the ammo economy. Primary special heavy works as intended now. You'll get enough heavy for the job. Just play the game properly now. None of this BS double special heavy stuff. Load of rubbish. Start playing the game properly. Primary special heavy. It's in the game. It works. So the mechanics for this boss fight, right? So you've got your bells and you've got your symbols. Now you can soft lock yourself, or almost soft lock yourself. I actually did soft lock almost. So, see, there was always a trick with this fight with Gahlran where you leave a nightmare alive. Well, on the first time that you go in the nightmare realm, you kill both bearers, which spawns 2 symbols. Pick one symbol up, leave the other symbol dormant. When you come back in the nightmare realm, right, to do your next phase, you'll have a spare nightmare. A nightmare bearer will respawn on DPS. So it means you get an extra 15 to 10 seconds of DPS time. Right, which you just saw me do that. Then I can go in for damage. Now remember, this is with surges. So I'm not getting the benefit there. I think Banner of War's buffing me. God knows what the buff on that is. But that's literally decent-ish damage. But with surges, that would have been so better. With surges, I would have been able to solo 2-phase, no problem. That damage is okay. See, that's the thing. I could have, as I say, ran Strongholds, and maybe Strongholds would be the slightly better play once you have access to the surges and stuff and the loadouts, but I don't, so it didn't really matter overall. It was still actually kind of nice to still have Synthoceps on, because when I do pop my super, I'm surrounded by all those enemy combatants, and it'll do massive damage for me. So my DPS will consist of Lament plus Roman super. So yeah, the little DPS trick with the bearers is, as I say, just to kill 2 and then pick up 1 symbol and then pick up another. But if you do back to back the same rooms, that's where you sort of mini soft lock yourself, and that's where you'll see at times I've got like 3 symbols. It doesn't really matter overall, because it's going to be a 3-phase anyways. I can't optimize in 2-phase because, as I said, I haven't got access to the loadout thing, and I couldn't be bothered, like I say, switching gear and all this sort of stuff. Just do a quick solo flawless clear. There's not much thought needed. I got it first go. It's really just to show off the Banner of War build, really, anyways. But I will say that it makes Duality probably the easiest. Well, no, it isn't the easiest it's been, because we did have Infinite Solar Restoration when it first launched. That was technically the easiest time to do it. But since then, I would say that this is probably the easiest time that you will get, especially on a Titan. Because Titans, survivability-wise in Duality, how have they been? They're alright. But a Warlock and a Hunter have a better time in this. But I think this is probably the best survivability build that we've seen for Duality on a Titan. Because you have access to Banner of War. You're refreshing your timer. So think of a Karnstein armlets, but better. In every way, actually. In every way. Pretty much. Well, I wouldn't say everywhere. Karnstein armlets is an actual cracked build as well, which I used for Ghost of the Deep Solo Flawless Week 1. So that is also really good. But this is, like, as I say, really the pinnacle of close quarter build now, I think. And I don't want them nerfing it neither. I've already spoke about that. So yeah, like I say, it's pretty straightforward. If you don't know the mechanics, you saw on screen literally what I'm doing. You're just associating symbols to rooms, clearing the nightmares, which you should have your glaive out the entire time to do that. If you get your Banner of War buff as well, it's going to help you to take down those nightmares a little easier. Always shackle the backpacks when possible, because you're not using a DPS grenade. So you may as well just shackle those backpacks. It just makes it more simpler and quicker. Because obviously you need to clear those to open up the bell to go back into the standard realm, because you got your standard realm and your nightmare realm. But yeah, you can see by the damage it's going to be a solo free phase. But that's literally all the information on Gahlran. There's nothing much else to tell you. Really simple clear on this build. Would have been even quicker if you two phasing. But yeah, overall, as I say, this was a decent. Well, it was a decent-ish clear, but as I say, it could have been way better with access to surges. So that's the information on that. I'll just skip forward commentary wise to the vault encounter, and then commentary wise for the final boss.
Shadows were cast here. History made.
So with the Vault encounter, this is probably the most challenging encounter that you'll face so far in this dungeon. We are changing our loadout, weapons-wise, only weapon-wise, and a couple of scavenger mods, because we've got a different heavy weapon on, Crown Splitter and a barrier weapon. I highly recommend that you use a barrier weapon or a waveframe grenade launcher. Up to you. I'm not going to use a waveframe grenade launcher, if I'm being honest, because I want to use the glaive. Right, there is a kinetic... Well, there is a stasis waveframe grenade launcher, but that means double special heavy. And you could do, but I don't really want to use double special heavy because now that primary special heavy works, I want to use primary special heavies, to be honest. So, yeah, the answer is either a barrier weapon, so you could use Wish Ender in this, right? Wish Ender would be good, because the issue is the phalanxes. This is why you want a barrier weapon, because they're awkward to deal with. And when you're going for symbols, because it's the same mechanic as what we've been doing, you go to symbols, but then there's 4 obviously sections. You need to go to the right section because you've got Nightmare Collapse in 60 seconds. If you're too slow, or if there's any problems at all with phalanxes, you are actually literally losing time, and the timing can be tight for people. Some people can do two symbols in the 60 seconds with Eager Edge Sword and stuff, but the timing on that is really strict, and you need to have practiced that in advance to know what you're doing. I don't recommend doing the 2 symbols in the 60 seconds. I recommend for most, just do the 1 symbol. Do yourself a favour, just do the 1 symbol per run. Because not only that, you've got to kill your 2 backpacks on the way out. Because remember, you've always got to remember, after you've picked up the symbol, that you need to, you know, prep yourself going out of this realm. Like, look, on average, if we're getting to the bell with 15 seconds, we've played efficiently enough. You always have access to a super as well, so if you're worried, you can use a super, but I would recommend you try not to do that. But if it's a last-ditch thing, you get booped into a wall by a phalanx, and maybe there's some things going against you, or adds are hiding and stuff, which they shouldn't really, but if they are, then you can pop a super and save yourself a couple of seconds as a last-ditch resort. But I wouldn't you don't have to do it. I only recommend if you're gonna die, then yes, pop your super, because it will get rid of phalanxes and all the enemies really quick. So we're literally now just, as I said, clearing all the enemies and stuff. I think we're looking for our next symbols now. I think on one of the rotations I ended up going to the wrong section. It might be this one. Just with being rusty with the old, yeah, we have, I believe it was Cup, and I've went to Sun. So I've already wasted 15 seconds, 16 seconds, 17. There's no point really to try and push ourselves and go to the right room. I've already lost too much time. It would be too tight on the time, and so we'll just cut our losses on this one and just redo it, because I went to the wrong side. And something as simple as just going to the wrong side, the wrong symbol room, can have a massive knock-on effect. So if that happens, I recommend you just start over. Right, it's only 6 symbols, 2 symbols at a time. So when you dunk your 2 symbols, you've got your mini boss to deal with, and that's literally all you're doing. So Vault's not difficult. The only difficult thing is this section. But that's, as I say, the barrier, whatever barrier weapon for the season's up, go with that, or even Wish Ender would quickly one-shot them. I would imagine Wish Ender would be really good in this. I just used Quicksilver Storm. Quicksilver Storm was alright. I didn't use it to its fullest because I'm not really spamming it. I'm only really using it against those annoying phalanxes. If this Colossus is bashing you from a distance like that, always go out with the glaive and stun him. Even though it's not unstoppable glaive, it almost feels like it still is unstoppable glaive, because when you do your range attack, you do momentarily stun enemies. So when you're approaching a backpack, when you're running and jumping towards them, always have your guard up and then stun them initially. You'll see me do it quite like just there. Did you see it? Doing that just stops the booping and stuff like that. It just costs you so much time, all that stuff. You will not be killed in a wall because they've changed that bug. Where, well, it wasn't Well, yeah, it was. It was a physics bug where you could, if you were knocked into a wall, you could die. That's fixed now, but they leave you one shot if they knock you into a wall. You could be cleaned up by other enemies anyways. So you never really want this to happen ever. You never want to be booped. That's where the glaive and the frontal shield will come in, because when you block, you negate stomp damage or knockback damage, which makes the glaive the best weapon. It's even more so now the best weapon to run in Duality. It's the best special weapon to run. Second being Waveframe / Fusion. But the glaive even outclasses those two weapons because it just does more for you, right? Its ad clear is slower, yeah, but that's not its strength. Its strength is the guard, and the guard resistance is so good on the final boss. Now I know there's still people against, like, that rallying crowd who doesn't like glaives. We don't like glaives. We don't want them in the game. Why? Is that a good weapon type? It's because they're not flashy. Like I've said, they're a utility weapon, and look at them that way. Don't think about them as, what ad clear can I get out of this weapon? Think about the bigger picture. They're an end game weapon. That's what they were made for, right? They're a sword in your special slot. That's how I really look at them. I don't even think of them as a glaive. They are literally a sword. Why? Because you can freaking kill enemies. I know it's first person and not third, but they're literally doing so much in the game right now. It's very useful in certain encounters, and as I say, they shine the most in Duality. So that's literally the mechanics of Vault. I don't need to cover too much more. I am using Crown Splitter, which worked well for me, but just bear in mind when you're DPS and make sure you've got at least a Banner of War procced if you're going to start doing damage with Crown Splitter, because Crown Splitter isn't going to do what Lament does, but obviously you could have run Strongholds, and I totally could have done. I do end up running Strongholds. I'm just showing you that I don't even need Strongholds, because I've got that much health regen. I've got that much access to the Banner of War that it doesn't matter either way. But it does matter on the final boss. I do highly recommend the Strongholds on Caiatl, which you'll see coming up. So obviously now we're at Caiatl. So now this takes all the mechanics you've learned so far, but infuses that with DPS, the bell mechanic and stuff like that. So it's really simple on basically how you go about doing things. So you've got sun top left, axis top right, dog bottom left, bottom right cup. I recommend that you have some sort of picture next to you to remind yourself. I actually do have some picture that I've got next to me so that when I'm playing this, if I see sun cup, right, that's top left, bottom right. I'm looking at it right away, top left, bottom right. Sun axis, top left, top right. And that's how I go about doing it. You need to have something to easy access, unless you've remembered it, which I have. But it's just, you know what I'm saying, it's just nice to look at something quickly. Right, top left, top right, or you've got an awkward symbol, bottom right, top left, and stuff like that. So the hardest section for people probably is this bit with the Nightmare Collapse, and you've still got 60 seconds, but it's nowhere near as time intensive as the Vault. You just saw me there easily do it, because the build makes it that way. I'm going to get 2 symbol dunks, which I generally don't recommend, because for every single symbol dunk you do, you get like 3 waves of the Colossus, of the solar enemies that float in the air and stuff. But because of how potent and strong the build is, right, we can overpower them. And I recommend that you probably do it that way if you can, get a double symbol dunk. Safely, mind, make sure you got Baron War procced at the very least and stuff. But if you do that, all the enemies come out in a wanna, and you can quickly just take care of them. Because you do want to take out those enemies, because they're going to become more annoying as the fight goes on. If you don't, by phase 2, 3, you're going to have those enemies swirling everywhere, and there is a chance to die, potentially, if you're caught out of position and don't have Banner of War procced. So just be careful. Just do yourself a favour and take out the enemies. Don't be lazy about it. So when you're getting your 2 symbols, depending on the rotation of your symbols, so I've got all symbols all on the left hand side, I'll deal with the nightmares first, then the backpacks. But if I've got top left, bottom right, where you're going vertical, right, vertical across the map, then what I do is I take one of the nightmares, pick up symbol, then across my way in middle, I'll do a shackle nade to shackle the 2 middle backpacks, maybe deal with all the 4 backpacks, depending on how I feel, then take the final nightmare. Because why like stop? You're like, there's no point to skip them because you're gonna kill them anyways. So you're on the way there. You're passing the backpacks anyways. You may as well kill any that are near you, just because of how it works. Because if you don't, you're gonna have to run back to mid, get them, and then do that anyways. So what's the point? You may as well just kill them on the way. You'll also refresh Banner of War as you're going across. And also the Colossus that blind you in the Nightmare Realm, never deal with them. The best case scenario is to always run away from them, because they will just eat your time up. If you start trying to kill both Colossus on the Nightmare Realm, you're losing so much time. At the very least, you could shackle them, but that's a wasted shackle that you could have used on backpacks in middle. So it's up to you, but I really would not do that. What you need to understand though, there's one con to this. I think Waveframe GLs do help with this as well. Both that and Fusion. Fusion rifles will disintegrate the backpack attachable off backpacks. So they have a little exploder thing that falls on the ground. Well, if you use a Fusion, they disintegrate. Why is this a problem? Well, because when you're doing DPS, they can explode. If the boss stomps you near a backpack, the backpack will explode and deal environmental damage to you. The glaive will not deal with this, but you have a shield as a backup anyways. I'm going to shackle middle backpacks. We're on DPS phase 1. We immediately kill the 2 backpacks in mid, and then we check boss. Step 2 is check boss straight away. Get your guard up, because the boss will more than likely stomp. Then we go for DPS. This first DPS phase, by the way, was terrible. It was just really shocking. You'll see in a minute how bad it was. We go to middle because we're ruling out the possibility if he goes mid I accidentally swing Lament, and then it spirals out of control from there. I end up messing my damage rotation up completely, not having my Laments charged. That's fine though, because we end up making up more for this anyways on phase 2. It's going to be a free phase anyways. It doesn't matter. It just means, as I say, I've whiffed my final phase. I use a superheat just to see what damage it'll do, and if Synthoceps procs, it doesn't. The snipers aren't close enough. That's fine. I've worked that out. But we get him down to a third. Right. I'm going to do some more Lament damage, because a unstunned Caiatl will still take damage, but at a reduced rate, massively. Like Aephion, you can damage Aephion without the buff. It's the same deal with this. You can damage Caiatl without the buff. It's just that little bit more damage, just in case something else goes wrong again on phase 2 or phase 3. It didn't, but just in case. We rinse and repeat, same thing. Fresh Nightbearers have spawned, the backpacks. So now, look for your symbols. Before you start clearing Bellbearers, look for your symbols first. So it's sun. I think it's sun and dog, right? So sun and dog is left hand side entirely. So we'll kill the Bellbearers on left hand side, because the bell on left hand side is most appropriate for this side, obviously. Right? You could use middle. Middle's good access, but if you had symbols on left, you're not gonna enter the bell via right, are you? That's just being silly. Just use your common sense, right? Just use your common sense. Just evaluate symbols first, and then go from there. We're going to go through middle. We'll use our tangle as well. Don't forget, because of my aspect, I've got woven mail into the fray. So if we're going to get woven mail because of that, when we destroy a tangle or whatever. We've quickly got our 2 symbols. That was actually really, really quick. We've still got Banner of War proc, so we dunk a symbol. You can also guard with your glaive as you dunk, which is actually really, really nice. But remember though, it is a frontal shield, not a bubble. Some people think glaives are bubbles. They're not. Only the exotic one does that. It's a frontal shield, so you can get hit in the back. And all the enemies surround you here, snipers and stuff. So, just bear that in mind. But, ideally, as I say, have that Banner of War, have a healthy timer on that when you're dunking. Because that is the only risk of death here, is that you overcommit to dunking your symbol. You haven't got Banner of War procced, or is a low time on it. You then die because of it. So I've really detailed the rules, but I'll keep the commentary going, because I'll commentate how you should successfully do damage to Caiatl on phase 2. We'll go via middle. A good shackle grenade there. That's just showing you the utility of shackle. Shackle's probably acting in the game how Bungie wants it to, which is fine. If this is how they want shackle to be in the game space, in the meta, then that's fine. Shackle's still got a purpose, just it hasn't always got a purpose like it used to. It sometimes has purpose, but not always. That's fine, because it means that we can use other Strand stuff. And I understood why they done it. It makes sense. They want you to explore other Strand builds. There should not be just Strand and one build. It's not really healthy for the game, even though it was fun as it was when it launched. That was the risk there. That's what I'm saying about overcommitment. I overcommit to a symbol slightly there, but Banner of War obviously was enough to help us survive. When you're on your final 2 symbols before DPS, take out the 2 middle bearers if you don't need them, because they're just a nuisance and they get in your way, because you do want to clear out the 2 middle bearers first for DPS, not left or right. I recommend this is how you do it. Also, you can enter the Nightmare Realm earlier by shooting a bell as you prime a bell, as in the middle bells, the 4 chains. As you prime that, you can actually shoot a bell and go in there soon. The danger of doing that is that there'll be 4 snipers up instead. Sorry, there'll be will there be 4? I don't know how many snipers, but there'll be more snipers than generally. Right? It'll spawn in snipers twice on each thing. So I don't recommend it. Although you could out heal it with Strongholds, so there's always that. The Caiatl come middle, so that was fine, because one of the bell bearers misbehaved. That sometimes happens, but we got a bit of bad luck and luck at the same time, so that's okay. This damage phase is much better. We had Banner of War as well to increase our damage a little bit. I'm checking boss, healing. Got Strongholds on as well, swapped. Which I didn't have Strongholds on the first wave of damage, but I do this time. We use a Shackle, because the second set of Bellbearers is the most threatening, not the first or the last. Definitely the middle, because that's when you don't know where he's going. After the first bell, you don't know where he's going until you watch. But on the final bell, you do know where he's going, right? So I've got a Shackle Grain back anyways, which is actually really good. So I have been able to shackle all 3 sets like that is really good. I've got a Tangle, but I haven't got the time to pick it up. We'll use the Glaive as well, the range attacks. It one-shots a bell. Make sure that you do that. So you want a fully loaded Glaive, or at least some ammo in it. Ammo's damage is much better here. We've got it right. We're going to even pop Super when he's unstunned to try and get some good damage in still. We don't even need it really, to be honest, at this point, because the boss is 25% HP. But that's how you would pull off a decent damage phase. Now imagine that with triple Solar Surge, right, with a good elemental time dilation on there. You're Solar 2 phasing. It'll be an easy Solar 2 phase once loadouts are back in the game. But they're not at the minute, which has meant my run's longer than what I want it to be. Duality, generally, a good Solar Flawless Duality, I want it to be around about 45 minutes. 40 to 45 minutes, but the run's quite longer because we've got an extra phase on Gahlran, we've got an extra phase on Caiatl. It all adds up, makes you run longer. It's just how it is. But I'm still showcasing the build, at the very least, early on. So, in the season, so that's still good. Another thing as well, when you're going to the... It's not 60 seconds of Nightmare Collapsing, by the way, it's 30. Got that wrong, I don't know why I said 60. But you get an extension of time when you kill each Nightmare. Not off the backpacks, off the Nightmares. You're seeing the Glaive and the Banner of War working out really well here. I got hit hard by the Colossus there, but that's okay. Like I say, I believe this to probably be the easiest Solo Flawless Duality in the game now. This is technically the easiest way of doing it. I can't think of an easy way of doing it. Maybe Arc Hunter, but even then, Arc Hunter's good and all, but we've seen that gameplay. So I think this is probably the easiest way to do this for those who are on the lower end of spectrum of skill. For those players who do struggle with the Soul Flawless, because there's still players out there. Like I said it the other day. There's this misconception that everyone's Solar Flawless is now. That isn't true at all. If you were to really look at the numbers, I know we don't really have the numbers. Well, we do technically have the numbers actually, because you can actually look at each dungeon and the Solar Flawless stats on each emblem, and when people get it, and how rare that emblem is. And I look at these stats, especially week 1 of a new dungeon coming out. Ghost of the Deep dungeon, the Solar Flawless emblem for that was very rare week 1. Is it rare now? I don't know. It's kind of rare, but not that rare, because the dungeon's been out quite some time now. Well, a season. So we're just looking at our final symbols. We're going to go by middle bell, because in that case it made sense, because we have the double symbols at... I think this was the rotation where I have double symbols at the back of the map. So it made sense just to take middle. I'm going to do with some of these backpacks, because I was on my way doing that anyway, so I may as well finish the job I was doing. Don't do half a job, may as well. Take out the final Nightmare. Final symbol for this phase. And like I say, how easy do you want this? This is literally as easy as it'll get without having infinite solar restoration like we used to have when the dungeon first came out. It really is as good as you're going to get, especially for Titan mains in PvE. Because whilst you do have Arc Titan, which is really good, It's not as good as survivability as what this would be. By nowhere near, actually, in that case. What your danger would be right now, right here, on phase 2, phase 3, would be on the Nightmare Realm if backpacks explode on you. As in, the items dotted across the map. If those explode on you, then you need to immediately put your guard up. You should be doing that anyways when the boss stomps. Because you want the boss to stomp to slow the boss up. You need to bridge the gap between the bell and the boss to give you an increased time to get the bell shot before the boss wants to escape. Because that's what you're doing. The DPS for Duality is to stop Caiatl entering a bell and leaving the Nightmare Realm. Which is actually a genius mechanic for DPS. Very good. Spin on things. You're not just doing DPS. You've got to evaluate your position and the position of the boss. The bell bearers, are they behaving themselves? What's your HP? Is your recharge sword rate on Lament handy? Have you got strongholds on? You're thinking about all these things moment to moment. But it becomes easier depending on how many times you have solo flawless dungeon. I've done it loads of times, so my skill on it, my muscle memory on it is decent. I don't really need to think too much about it. But on your first clear, then that's different. Bosses went left, so we'll put our guard up all definitely because they were booping me, so we need to negate that. Do not hit the bell too soon. Let Caiatl come close within 3 to 4 meters at the very least. If you do it too soon, you can mess up the Wake and Resonance DPS buff. Boss is going to be killed on next bell because the boss hasn't got enough HP. We're going to go middle because that's where the boss could go. He could have went right, or she could have went right, it just depends. But we went mid just to make sure that we didn't mess up there. We use a super at the end to kill Caiatl, but that was a solo flawless Duality Season of the Witch. Hope you enjoy, thank you.